Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. The VA has touted just strides in improvement in this area. However, the newest data out contradicts that. So here's the headline. Homelessness among veterans jumps more than 7%. Now, not only is the VA acknowledging this in a press release on their side, I also have an article up here from Military Times. And if I'm going to kind of maybe do a little bit of both or all of both directly from the VA and from Military Times, just to see if there's some contrast that we can pull from it. In any case, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. And let's see if we can pull out any nuggets along the way here. So, all right. Now, jumping into the Military Times article, is where we'll start here. So the number of homeless veterans rose more than 7% from 2022 to 2023, the largest such yearly jump since federal officials launched a nationwide focus on the problem more than a decade ago. That's not good. According to data released by the Department of Housing and Urban Development on Friday, officials saw an increase of more than 2,400 veterans without stable housing during their annual point-in-time count conducted last January. So point-in-time counts happen annually. And I'm kind of here where I'm iffy with them because a lot of it is just kind of, you're not always getting to the homeless person and having a conversation. Now, the idea is you're supposed to with the veterans, but for the homeless in general, it's just that person looks homeless, that person looks homeless. There's a shelter there, nobody's in it, but it looks like maybe two people live, so it's just kind of canvassing and doing your best guess. I'll also throw out there that for a lot of these areas, organizations, what have you, the higher number you count, the more funding you can get to combat it. So it's this weird double-edged sword thing. So let's move on here. So that put the total number of veterans experiencing homelessness that night in cities across America at 35,574. Advocates for homeless veterans have noted that the actual number of veterans dealing with housing issues is likely even higher, given the limitations of a single night survey. Again, it's a one-time-a-year thing, and you're just doing a canvas. So if somebody packs up and picks up all their stuff and heads out and they're hanging out in a library or a coffee shop or something, you're not going to count that person, right? Because they've kind of disappeared. So anyway, moving on. The increase in homeless veterans, meanwhile, was less severe than the rise in homelessness in the general population, 12%, and is still 4.5% below veteran levels reported in 2020. The 35,574 estimate is also less than half of the 74,000 estimate in 2010, when the White House and Department of Veterans Affairs launched a series of high-profile initiatives targeting the problem. But the point-in-time count took place several months before the expiration of the pandemic program offering extra assistance to veterans facing financial hardships, a move that advocates have warned may have driven up homelessness totals even further in the last half of the year. In a statement, the VA Secretary announced the White House plans to increase a pair of grant programs designed to prevent housing issues among veterans. One veteran experiencing homelessness will always be one too many, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that veterans get the safe, stable housing that they deserve, he said. These new grants are a critical part of that effort, empowering VA and our partners to provide more housing and wraparound services to more homeless and at-risk veterans than ever before. Last month, VA leaders announced that for the second year in a row, they had met their goal of permanently housing 38,000 veterans facing financial problems and uncertain shelter options. However, those efforts in 2022 were not enough to help reduce the national numbers. VA and HUD officials said that they're still researching the reasons for the increase, including the rising cost of housing in communities across the country and the end of the COVID-related support programs. Earlier this week, HUD leaders announced the number of grants to homeless service organizations rose 15% from the end of 2022 to the end of 2023. That translates into more than 330,000 individuals who sought assistance. In a statement, officials from the National Coalition of Homeless Veterans called the new homelessness report disappointing but not surprising. These numbers reflect what many have long known. We're facing a crisis of housing affordability, they said. Our members across the country and our national partners have long sounded the alarm regarding the seriousness of this crisis and need for further and deeper federal investment in solutions. The administration and Congress could heed continued warnings that a lack of investment and programmatic change will continue to be disastrous for veterans facing housing instability. Congress must restore expired pandemic-era legislation provisions to improve veteran access to both transitional housing and supportive services. Veterans seeking help with homelessness or related financial problems can call 877-424-3838 for help or visit the VA's website and search homelessness. So that's the Military Times version. I want to jump into the VA press release here. So the VA's press release is a little headline on their thumbnail here: 2023 veteran PIT count results. Now, PIT is the point in time, PIT. Veteran homelessness increased by 7.4% in 2023. So the VA, off the bat, kudos, is they're calling it like it is with the 0.4 in there instead of the rounded off at 7. So 7.4% in 2023. Point-in-time data reveals the significant need for affordable housing among veterans. This just came out on December 25th. Not Christmas. Came out on the 15th. December 15th. All right, so let's take a look here. The Department of Housing and Urban Development announced the results of the 2023 point-in-time count, the annual effort to estimate the number of Americans, including veterans, without permanent housing. The data showed that on a single night in January 2023, there were 35,574 veterans who experienced homelessness in the U.S. This reflects 7.4% increase in the number of veterans experiencing homelessness from 2022. Despite these increases, there is still an overall downward trend in veteran homelessness. The estimated number of veterans experiencing homelessness in the U.S. has declined 52% since 2010. Within the last 3 years alone, there has been approximately a 4% overall reduction in veteran homelessness. As with prior years, advocates for ending homelessness among veterans have eagerly awaited these results, anticipating it would show a late-stage effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and the gradual end of the pandemic-era protections. A deeper look. Looking deeper at the data, we see that of the veterans counted, 20,067 experienced sheltered homelessness, an increase of 502 veterans, or 2.6%. From 2022. So this would be your veterans who are in facilities, right? So shelters, and they'll identify as a veteran, and then those numbers get pushed back to HUD, right? So 20,067 experienced sheltered homelessness. 15,507 experienced unsheltered homelessness, an increase of 1,943 veterans, or 14.3% from 2022. Unsheltered veterans represented nearly 80% of the overall increase. Veterans who experience sheltered homelessness often live in emergency shelters, transitional housing programs, or other supportive settings. In contrast, veterans who experience unsheltered homelessness live in places not meant for human habitation, such as cars, parks, sidewalks, abandoned buildings, and literally on the street. This experience, the experience of homelessness alone is already harmful to veterans' whole health, mind, body, and soul. However, unsheltered homelessness among veterans is even worse, with research demonstrating that unsheltered individuals often report more significant negative health conditions than those that are sheltered, which makes sense. VA and our federal partners have made supporting unsheltered veterans a top priority, both as part of our 2023 homelessness goals and the All Inside initiative. As of October 2023, VA has already engaged with 34,498 unsheltered veterans to ensure they have access to the shelter and housing resources they need. This exceeded VA's goal to engage with 28,000 unsheltered veterans by 123.2%. Behind the numbers, we are currently analyzing the PIT count data to identify reasons for the increase in veteran homelessness. In the meantime, we know that different factors likely contributed. Housing affordability, according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the GAP report for 2022, only 36 rental homes are affordable and available for every 100 extremely low income renter household in the U.S. Consequently, even veterans who receive housing vouchers, which would be HUD-VASH, and they provide that kind of like a subsidy for your housing. Maybe your rent is $2,000, for example, and your HUD-VASH voucher might be for $1,200, and then you pay the difference of $800, for an example. May have difficulty using them in high-cost regions with housing shortages because the landlord has to accept those. It's kind of like Section 8. Moving on, the end of the COVID-related supports also contributed potentially. During the COVID-19 pandemic, numerous states and localities successfully expanded their emergency shelter capacity through hotels and motels due to increased resources and regulatory flexibilities. However, communities began decreasing the use of hotels when the COVID-19 public health emergency ended, and many stopped providing these additional shelters altogether. Additionally, policies and resources that prevented evictions helped millions of households and contributed to fewer people entering into homelessness. According to Princeton University's eviction lab, there were 58% fewer evictions in 2020 and 2021 than pre-pandemic, because nobody could evict anybody. So of course there were going to be fewer. While the investment in eviction prevention have kept eviction filings well below historical averages for nearly 2 years since the Center for Disease Control's eviction moratorium ended, eviction filings in many communities appear to have returned to pre-pandemic levels. When the need outpaces the resources, bottom line, more veterans needed homeless assistance resources than the existing capacity could help. The downstream impact can be seen in VA's goals to house 38,000 veterans in 2022, which VA actually exceeded by housing over 40,000 veterans. Despite these efforts, veteran homelessness still increased by 7.4%. Furthermore, overall homelessness increased by 12%, a larger increase than among veterans. We're confident that the rise, and that's good news. I mean, it's bad. This is such the weirdest world, right? So good news that the increase for veterans is less than everybody. Homelessness sucks altogether, but we're focused on taking care of veterans here. So glad that number is less. And also glad that VA exceeded their goal, which is also good, even though we are in a higher uptick here. So moving on, we're confident that with the rise in veteran homelessness, would have been worse if not for the significant actions taken by the House, or taken to house more veterans in 2022. What the numbers don't show, notably in 2023, PIT count results do not reflect the significant actions we've taken this year to support homeless and at-risk veterans. This past March, VA announced its 2023 goals for preventing and ending veteran homelessness, and we're making great progress. Over 38,847 more veterans have been housed as of October 31st, 2023, surpassing our goal 2 months earlier than projected. This year, VA has also expanded access to health care for homeless veterans. And oh, by the way, healthcare, if you're homeless, you should be able, from my understanding, to access VA healthcare free. You just need to go in there and let them know that you're homeless. So you don't have to have any sort of service connection. You just need to be a veteran and get in there. Remember that when you try to access the VA healthcare system, you have to have some sort of means of entry into the healthcare system. The most common is getting service connected for your different conditions, right? Also, on this little note, if you're homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, and your income drops substantially, and you don't have VA compensation and you can't get it, or it's very low for whatever reason, you can't prove nexuses or what have you, look into VA pension as well. All right, moving on. Expanded access for legal assistance for homeless veterans helped more than 145,000 veterans and their families retain their home and avoid foreclosure, and awarded more than $1 billion in grant funding to help homeless veterans. On the foreclosure piece, don't forget that the VA reached out to lenders and said not to foreclose on VA home loans for about another 5 months here. So just a little side note there as well. The work ahead. Our one veteran experiencing homelessness is too many, let alone 35,574. We are at a pivotal moment in the national housing and homelessness crisis, and the solutions are clear. Double down on our work to prevent veterans from becoming homeless in the first place. Connect homeless veterans to permanent housing with supportive services. Establish an effective shelter system to support veterans and their families. Increase the supply of affordable housing, and strengthen tenant protections and reduce evictions. In collaboration with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, HUD, the Department of Labor, and other federal and local partners, VA will continue to execute evidence-based approaches such as Housing First to prevent and end homelessness among veterans. We won't rest until every veteran has a safe, stable, accessible, and affordable home, and no veteran experiencing the tragedy of indignity of homelessness ever again. Learn more about VA programs. If you're a veteran who is homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, call the National Call Center for Homeless Veterans at 877-424-3838. You can also visit the VA Homeless Programs website. Just probably Google search that to learn more about housing initiatives and other programs for veterans experiencing homelessness. Don't forget about HUD VASH and SSVF, which is Supportive Services Veterans Families. Check out the Ending Veterans Homelessness podcast if you have access to that to learn more about what VA is doing about veteran homelessness. Also, let's see. That looks like it. So that ends it out. So the big thing there is if you are homeless, make sure you reach out to the VA. Let them know. They can maybe help guide you in the right spot. Again, that number is 877-424-3838. All right, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.